The combination of Jeremy Doku and Doku-O'Reilly overturned Real Madrid's lead that they got through Rodrigo and led to Xabi Alonso's future becoming even more uncertain at the hands of Pep Guardiola's men. But it could also be because Madrid were just wasteful. Three big chances missed, while City got 4 big chances and scored 2 of those. So, this video we're going to look at the setup of Manchester City and why Pep Guardiola has learned from his mistakes of last season and why Rodrigo is such a genius. So, let's start with Jeremy Doku's positioning. Wide and up and isolated with Fede Valverde. On the right hand side, you have Ryan Cherki. On the wide side, also Bernardo Silva in that right half space, rotating constantly with Cherki, and Nico Gonzalez in front of the defenders, while Foden is just roaming between the lines there. And you also had O'Reilly, who's basically doing the same role as Bernardo Silva, staying wide sometimes, but most of the times just inverted into that left half space. And Haaland obviously pinning back Rudiger and Asensio. This is where Pep Guardiola has improved his team drastically, because one thing that City does is, since they play usually against teams that are playing a low block, they commit a lot of men forward. And something that you wouldn't have seen last season is a back three when Manchester City are attacking. But this time around, you see that Nunes, most times, he would stay back and just become the third centre back. At times, he would go forward, but then that would mean Nico Gonzalez would drop to cover him, because there's also the thing of, let's not throw caution to the wind here, because we might end up getting punished. So these three would stay at the back like this for the most part. So what you will see for the most part, as I said, is O'Reilly and Doku just occupying that space. But sometimes O'Reilly would be the one drifting to the wide space and Doku being the one in the half space. But it's better if Doku is wide, and I will show you that in a moment, because as you continue to look at this, the discipline at the back and the wingers being wide or full backs in some cases, you will also see something that is very interesting. When City had the ball, you see the average positioning, that Doku is the one who was mostly on the left. You see that Nunes rarely crossed the halfway line because he was staying back to make sure that there was the discipline in that back three. And as the plan was for City, Doku was always the furthest man up front. Sometimes tracking back, but not as much as Cherki or Bernardo were doing, because he was not only, the dangerous man with the ball, but he's also an out ball when City wins the ball and they try to hit Madrid, or when they try to hit Madrid on a counter. Another thing that you'll also observe from this is Doku. When he's wide, as you can see in this map, his successful dribbles were mostly when he was wide, because in this case, he was isolated 1v1 with Fede Valverde. But when he wasn't isolated with Fede Valverde and he was allowed to just drift around, you see that wherever he tried to dribble, he just lost the ball, wherever he was, because there is one that he lost here against Fede Valverde wide, but most of the other three, he lost them because he was in an area that had a lot of traffic. So maybe it's better for him to stay wide. Or maybe Pep is thinking, if he stays wide all the time, teams will just overload that side. So then Pep keeps it, like that. Go inside sometimes, cause havoc there, because if you are there, then they think he's there now. But then you can just peel off and then go to the wide side and make sure that you are dominating that side. So for the goal, you will see that Manchester City have Doku and O'Reilly, one on the left wide space and then O'Reilly on the half space. Doku wins the ball and then he crosses it into the box, and then Asensio celebrates after blocking it, not knowing what was about to happen a few seconds after that. By the way, if you're enjoying the video before we look at the goal, please do make sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Right, so Asensio celebrates, and then it's time for Manchester City's corner. So for starters, this is unacceptable, because yes, Gvardiol heads the ball, but he's free, and he's marked by someone who's just like 10 centimeters taller than him. So it's not an aerial thing that one is better aerial. It's just that the timing of Jude Bellingham wasn't that great. So they had the ball. But look at what's happening as you see Jude Bellingham failing to judge the flight of the ball there, highlighted in red. But this is what gets me and what would piss me off if I was Xabi Alonso. You see, you have a situation whereby Camavinga and Rudiger are more focused on blocking the run of Diaz. And in them doing that, they try to block him, but then he's a big man himself, so he takes them both down. And as a result, they are now both of them down, so they are no longer available to clear the ball. And Courtois saw this ball late, so now he tries to save it, but his reaction is too slow, which also makes Carreras, be in a very precarious situation because he thinks the keeper is getting that ball. So he kind of just is caught flat-footed, and that's when Doku-O'Reilly steps up, and then he just finishes it off because no one is marking him. For the second goal, it's the same thing. Doku is isolated with Valverde, and then he takes him down the line. He passes the ball to O'Reilly because now they have doubled up on Doku because they see that Valverde is struggling to deal with Doku. And the ball goes to O'Reilly. Now O'Reilly is about to cross the ball. But here's another thing. Same mistake that they did on the goal. The cross is going in, and Rudiger is more focused on holding on to his man instead of moving across and also just trusting his teammate, Tchouaméni, to be able to deal with the ball. But it doesn't trust him, and then the ball just goes over. Carreras actually clears the ball here, but then a penalty is a penalty, and then it's given, and then City score. It's 2-1. If you also look at the goal that was scored by Rodrigo, funny enough, it started from an attack by Jeremy Doku, because he was here with the ball, and then he crosses it, and then they clear the ball. Carreras just bullies Bernardo Silva, and from here, it's a counter. Now, if you look at this is why I say this is just pure individual brilliance. All 4 City defenders are at the back, but they were still unable to deal with this because the ball is just played across to Rodrigo by Bellingham, and then he just shoots. So the goal that they scored is not there was like some tactical brilliance. It was just a counter that did not require the entire team to really participate, but just 3 players, Carreras, Bellingham, and then Rodrigo. More so Rodrigo. And I will say this, I think Rodrigo had such a brilliant game, and football as it is wasn't fair to him because then he ended up losing the match despite the fact that he played a good game. And on Madrid, I think it would be unfair to fire Xabi Alonso yet because I can clearly see what he's trying to do with his team, and they still created a lot of chances. Yes, they were not high-quality chances because the XG of Madrid was 1.5, while the XG of Man City was over 2. So that tells you that the quality of the chances that are being created are still not as good as those that City created. But then you have to think about, look at the nature of the goal. There was a penalty, that's 0.79 of XG. And then O'Reilly was right in front of the goal. His XG was 0.87. So the O'Reilly chance had a higher XG even than the penalty. But how did you see the game? Do let me know down on the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And check out this video where I analyze Reece James's impact for Chelsea.